Hello, this is David from DN Cognitive Counseling. Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the Joe Biden statement, where he stated that if you don't vote for him, and I'll put it in quotes, you ain't black. And the truth is that whether it was a joke, whether he said it in jest, the reality is that it's a bigger problem in terms of the way that people see things in general. And I'm going to talk more about that because a lot of the pundits who are coming out in defense are actually saying things that are absolutely worse than even the initial statement that Joe Biden himself made. I'm going to put a link down to a CNBC interview where where on CBS Joel Payne is talking to a correspondent. And basically, he says, doesn't make a difference what Joe Biden says. It doesn't make a difference what he does. The African American community will not break away from Joe Biden, which actually mirrors the Joe Biden comment to begin with. And it's very sad. And I was so glad that the person speaking plays a clip from somebody from the NAACP who actually explains, no, that's not the case, where this would be a situation where you do still have to garner a people and vote. But I'm going to go a little further even in saying that the way that they're even framing this is horrific. For many years, we've had questions that we've had to ask people. And one of them is, are you African American or are you white? How do you identify yourself as, in other words? It was very interesting because sometimes people come in and they look a certain way and their presentation is a certain way, and then you find out they're not. What I've come to learn is that people from the islands do not like being called African American. They actually have an issue with that. So you could say somebody from Jamaica and you say, are you African American? Okay. No, absolutely not. And they get sometimes even angry. Then you have people who over-identify that anybody who is of anything other than Caucasian falls under African American. And that actually gets other people upset. So everybody has their individualistic and their ideologies about things, and that's fine. The point is that we're all individuals. In my years of practice, there's only one thing I can say about African Americans, and that is absolutely nothing. I can't even tell you that their skin color is black. I'm going to tell you a story about this. This story happened, by the way, many years ago, before I was in practice and I was in college. And it was a tutoring situation. And I came in and there was somebody that was there and we were sitting and talking. And by the third session, she goes, it's a good thing you're not a racist. And it was like a really bizarre statement that seemed to come out of nowhere. And I said, why? Now, let me just tell you who she was first so you get an idea. Her skin color was whiter than mine. She was light. I thought she was from England in terms of if you ever seen people from there. She had a little bit of that accent. Black hair, brown eyes, very petite, very nice young woman. And she was looking at me and says, because I'm black. Now, I start cracking up laughing. My assumption was, this is obviously a joke. I'm being punked. And I saw her on her face. She scowled and she was upset. She goes, why is that so funny? And I realized she wasn't making a joke. So, of course, I said, because I'm black too. Then she started laughing. I said, you see, it is funny. And then she goes, no, but seriously, both my mother and my father were black. And, I had no reason to doubt her. I didn't go to her genealogy. I didn't know if she got switched at birth. I have no idea what in the world happened. But if you would have told me that I was meeting a black or African-American student and I had to meet with them for this meeting, I never would have found her in a million years. And I made a statement like that. I said, if the police were looking for you, they said African-American, they would never find you. You'd walk right by. They'd go, oh, not her. They would never know. Because it was an ability to be able to identify somebody, not an aspect of who and what they are. Through the years, I've had clients who have been African-American and conservative, African-American independent, African-American and liberal. You want to know the gambit of all the different ideas they had? There is nothing that unified them all. And yet, when you hear the media speak, Well, the African American community believes this, and the African American community believes that. And they look at the standards of that, they're creating and forcing a groupthink that's not helpful to anybody. And in a sense, Joe Biden fell into that same mentality and trap. In 1960, in fact, when he states in his original statement about when he made that, he actually defends why that's the case. Because in 1965, I did this in the Voting Rights Act. Could you imagine Republicans today running on the fact, well, we freed people from slavery while the Democrats held you in slavery, therefore you should vote Republican? Would anybody even think of that as a valid argument why the Republican Party should be the ones that African Americans should be voting for? Or is it a matter of what's going on now and who holds what opinion today? And even though you might be neighbors with somebody, and both of you might be similar skin colors, you might have a difference of opinion. You might have a different thought process of what you think right and wrong and who's better and who's not. We need to stop putting people into categories and assuming that's what you are. I have homosexual clients that run the gambit of belief systems. Some against homosexual marriage, against it. Could you imagine saying, you're not homosexual if you believe that? It's insane. Because when you get into the idea of groupthink, you cause people to have problems. And actually, I do have a lot of people who go against either family belief systems, group belief systems, they're a way that they think they're supposed to think, and they feel guilty when they say they don't think that way. And they're ashamed to say it, which I think is the reason why you're seeing some of the Candace Owens and Kanye West coming out and being that backlash in a sense of saying, no, I don't want to be pigeonholed into one thought process. And I think it's important that we recognize for ourselves and for others, we are all individuals. You ever sit by your family and you're sitting around the table, and even though you grew up in the same house, you all have different ideas? Isn't that amazing? And you could sit there and have a vehement discussion or disagreement with each other and not believe the same way, or not be voting in the same direction and have disagreements. That's healthy and normal. This is a good way of looking at things, is the fact that we're individuals with different ways to see things. The media keeps portraying people in these boxes. You belong in this box because of this is your demographic. Now, I do understand that it helps them to be able to target things and target audiences based upon seeing that group think. But it's very detrimental for us as a families, in our families and our communities and the way that we see things. It is much better to promote the individuality and for us to be able to express what we believe, why we believe it, and be able to be wrong about things and to let other people be wrong about things. It's much better to have disagreements and discussions. I know it's no secret, but I put out here before, I listen to a wide variety of different pundits on different spectrums because I like to hear differences of opinion. I like to hear both the people that are on MSNBC and on Fox News. And I don't say, well, one's crazy and the other is not. They both have their issues and their problems, and being able to see that's important. Joe Biden has a problem. He needs cultural sensitivity training. And then the idea of cultural sensitivity training is not to see people as only part of their culture. Oh, you come from here. That must mean you believe this. That is culturally insensitive on its face value. You don't want to do that to Joe Biden. Joe Biden, you are a white person from here, so you must believe this. It's just not true. And it's a disservice to people in all areas of life for their belief system and for who they are as an individual. You have every right to your belief system. You have every right to your value system. You have every right to believe in the things that you think are important without anybody telling you that you belong part of a group think, that you must believe this because of this demographic that you're in. And that's the problem here. But again, I don't blame Joe Biden for this. This has been something that has been portrayed and pushed on us for a long period of time, both in terms of parties and affiliations and where you are in terms of your demographics and how much money you make. It must be you believe this. all the rich white people, quote unquote, who are in charge of all these things. But if you take a look at those quote unquote rich white people, how much money do they give to different things and different organizations? And do they all give to the same ones? They don't believe one thing. Every white person that's rich and every black person that's rich has their own specific individualistic beliefs. If you went to the Koch brothers or you went to George Soros, you're not going to get the same belief systems, even though they're both white and rich. And if I go to Bill Gates, I'll get a whole different thought process because they're individuals. If I see right now, we had, as I mentioned before, about Michael Jordan and the aspect of who's the greatest player. They did a question about 23 athletes, who it was. 65% said Jordan. 15% said, I think it was LeBron. 6% said this other person, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. 3%, and it was like different people. Because people have different points of view. You're not going to find everybody agreeing on everything all the time. And we shouldn't. If we see that is a demographic where there's 100% agreement and everybody believes this way, we have a problem. In fact, when I see that there's a 90 to 3%, that's a problem. Because that means there's not enough ability for people to have differing opinions and discussions about what's really going on, and people fall into this pattern of groupthink. I don't know of a demographic group that believes anything totally. And it's unhealthy. As I mentioned in the video, as Joel mentions in the video that you could see below, I'll post a link, he states, it doesn't really matter what Joe says because we're going to vote for him anyway. And that's really the message that he put out there, which is scary because that means basically we don't care about facts or reality. We already have our mind made up. And that's fine for a person that's going and saying, listen, I am voting against Donald Trump no matter what. And anybody could say that. And I actually did a video of why you could believe Joe Biden did something that was absolutely horrific with Tara Reade. And you could believe Tara Reade and still vote for him. So I'm not even saying that's not the case. The fear I have is this lack of ability for people to be individualized. And this idea that groupthink is something that we want to promote and push as sort of like, that's the right way. And as long as we're following these things, you're part of this group. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you'll hit like if you liked it. If you disagree with anything I said, please comment below. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you'd like to support this channel, please hit the link below for the Patreon account under Subcribe-star. And I hope you have good night and good mental health.